Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Learning Curve, Scale AI's monthly Tech Talk series. Today's topic is on what's new in Scale AI's computer vision APIs, and our presenter is Shaun VanWeelden, a field engineering manager here at Scale AI. Before we begin, just a quick housekeeping note. We will have a Q&A after the presentation, but if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A feature in the Zoom. And with that, Shaun, please go ahead and take it away.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Well, hey everybody. Hope everybody's week is going great. I'm very excited to be here talking about what is new in our computer vision API. So let's dive in. So quick agenda for the day. I'm going to give a quick overview about what field engineering means here at Scale. Next, we'll get into some of our image and video-based endpoints. We'll review some of the tools to make better and more robust data pipelines. We're going to talk about some of the features that we've been rolling out to help the developer experience, i.e. your experience. And then as we just mentioned, we're going to end in some Q&A today. So I had my own quick housekeeping slide. So frantically taking notes is optional. You are going to get a recording of this shortly after. So don't worry about taking notes if you don't want to be taking notes. As we just mentioned, please do ask questions. This is live. It's not one of those pre-recorded things where we push the button and it just goes. And everything we're talking about today is also live. So if you see something really cool that you're excited about, it should be documented and you can start using it today, which is great. So field engineering at Scale. What do we do? Who are we? Well, we're the team that connects Scale customers, i.e. yourselves, and our engagement managers helping our customers with Scale's engineering and product team. And so we are a team of engineers ourselves, distributed actually around the globe, here in the SF Bay Area, Argentina, Europe. And we really focus on helping get tasks into Scale and out of Scale in the way that you would expect. To do that, we own our SDKs and our documentation. We do things like our API debugging. If you're seeing anything weird going on, we're the team that's probably going to help you out. And then every once in a while, since we are humans, we make mistakes, we submit the wrong data, we do something that needs to be fixed, and we do a lot of that custom work to go help make things right again. So in a nutshell, that's the field engineering team at Scale. We are hiring, by the way, always. So if that sounds pretty cool, do let me know, and then we can chat more. All right. So getting into the meat of it, what is new in our image endpoints? Well, first things first, this has actually been out for a bit now, but we have consolidated our single geometry endpoints. If you've been a Scale customer for a while, you might have remembered those that last year you'd have to have an endpoint for boxes and an endpoint for polygons and an endpoint for lines and so on. And that wasn't very efficient, neither for our customers or for us. And so what we really wanted to do was bring all those different geometries together in one task. So you can see in the image here on the right-hand side, I've actually have polygons for vehicles, I have cuboids for the barriers, I have ellipses for the traffic light bulb, and it's all in one task. There's no need now to go try to put things together on the back side or after the task has been returned back to you. You can ask for and get all the geometries in one place. Now, when would you actually use this? Well, if you think about it, sometimes different types of objects require a different level of granularity in the annotation. What might need to be very precise, such as a vehicle or a person, might not need to be as precise for like a traffic sign. Maybe a bounding box is just fine for that. And so with this, we can go combine all of those different geometries together. All right, so, and frankly for us too, makes it a heck of a lot easier to maintain. Now we just have to have one endpoint very well documented, and it should make it improves our ability to go roll out features to you, which is another great benefit. The next thing I wanted to chat about was our hypothesis and layers. So what are we talking about here? Well, a hypothesis allows you to pre-label a Scale task with editable annotations. In effect, you can actually just feed a Scale response back into this field and use that as the hypothesis going forward. Our image layers have actually been around for a bit. And they show read-only context on top of images that can guide the annotation process. Moving over to the right side of the slide, I suppose, we'll want to use a hypothesis when we should be editing or correcting annotations, and when you want those annotations back as part of your task response, just like any other annotation. We'll want to use layers when you want to provide visual cues to guide taskers to a specific region of interest, and you don't want them really part of the response. They're there just to provide that read-only context. A really cool use case that we've seen customers start to develop with us is taking an existing data set that they got from online, they had from the past, or something like this, and having Scale actually add additional details to it, whether we want to go add more attributes about a specific area that's become interesting to us, or just fixing or updating the overall taxonomy there. So that's kind of that last point as well. So if you have a bunch of old data and we have new problems to solve with it, you can go ahead and send in the old data and we would be able to update that for you. On the layers piece, this is going to be really great for showing taskers, that specific region of interest. So for example, I can draw a bounding box to only add labels in that specific region to really help focus the labeling effort on what's most important to you. The next thing I wanted to chat about is a little bit smaller, but still very helpful. So padding. Padding adds extra labelable space around your image. We are allowed to draw annotations in this space. You would use this if you need to kind of know or guess the extent to which an annotation goes off of the image. For example, to estimate the amount of truncation that might be occurring. Another time when we see padding be helpful is if we have annotations that come from other data sources like LiDAR, where we know that how to project, I guess, the cuboid onto the image or the box. This can also be helpful to kind of allow people to have more context about the full extent of that shape from these other sensor modalities. The next thing I want to discuss is actually one of my favorite things that we've kind of built out. It's the idea of contextual attachments. Contextual attachments are going to be additional images that can provide context to the image being labeled. These contextual images are not labeled themselves, but they are there to guide the annotation process and provide a different level of context. So, and the GIF on the right-hand side, we have a regular camera, and then we have an IR sensor as well. And that you can see that the people are being picked up very vibrantly here. So if I was trying to find where all the people were in the scene, maybe I had missed those, but with the contextual attachment, it's very clear where different key objects are in the scene. This is great, if we just have different ways of expressing the same scene differently. So whether it's on the HDR cameras or something else, different ways to kind of render out the same image, we can include that as a contextual attachment. Similarly, if we just have multiple cameras capturing the same scene from different points of view, we can go ahead and provide those there. So if we're trying to figure out what was something in a corner, maybe that contextual attachment can help provide more clarity to that edge case. A cool thing that we've seen when labeling images that come from a video or video-like sequence is including the few images before or after the image was captured. That way, as something is moving through, we can see in more clarity what exactly could be in this scene. And then the last kind of use case here is if we have pre-captured imagery from other vendors like a street view or something else, especially as I think about different satellites and kind of mapping use cases for image annotation. This contextual information can provide a lot of help to understand what is in the scene, even though some parts might be a little bit different or they change over time. The next thing I want to chat about is priority. So, getting tasks back in a timely manner is always top of mind for all teams. When sending in thousands of tasks, the priority determines which tasks get started first. You would use this when you want to influence which task will be returned to you. And when you have a higher priority data sets being submitted, or you need to submit a higher priority data set rather, but you already have thousands of tasks in the queue, priority can be a nice way to bump those up to the top of the list. Now, I do want to give a caveat that while priority does impact which tasks will get picked up first, there is not a direct correlation to which tasks are returned first. Uh, we are able to offer the pricing and the throughput that we do by parallelizing a lot of the labeling efforts. And so, we cannot guarantee the return order, which means if you do have an urgent ask or something on a very tight timeline, we would love for you to work with our engagement manager team to go make sure those are there. So I want to set the right expectations around this priority field, but it is a tool that we think will help kind of influence tasks and give you some control over which tasks are being returned to you first. The next thing I want to highlight is going to be very impactful for our GIS and satellite imagery use cases. We have a way to tell scale about additional information, such as the real world distance or the spatial resolution, as well as some date times about when a particular image was captured that can be used to aid the labeling efforts. So I've zoomed in on I used our ruler tool inside of our platform, and I can now see that the point at which I had drawn was about 14 kilometers based off of the spatial resolution of this Google Maps image. And so this information can help classify objects to know, like if we have different types of objects in the scene and it's not clear from just looking top down at them, knowing their size or dimensions or relation to other things can really help guide the labeling efforts and drive that quality and recall even higher there. All right. This is one that I think pretty much every single person could start using today. We've added more options to labels. And so we've had a hierarchy for quite a while, but we've really doubled down on how that displays in our user interface, as well as adding the option to have a display value. So when you have an internal taxonomy with non-human readable values, and you don't want to maintain your translation between scale values and your values, having a display value that helps humans know what this is while maintaining a very strict kind of choice or like the actual value that would be returned to you in the API, the display value is perfect for that. What's going to be returned to you and your response would always still be the choice. Now there's an easy way to change how that is displayed to our tasker community. This is also really useful to say if we find like, oh, the word cone might not be very helpful, but maybe we want to change it to traffic cone, but you've already hard-coded cone all over your entire code base. But you don't need to go change or write a bunch of if statements now that say convert traffic cone to cone. You just display it as traffic cone, and that would be enough for our UI. But your response to you doesn't actually change, or our response to you does not change. Sorry. We would highly recommend starting to use a hierarchy once you have probably more than 10 to 15 labels. If you have less than 10, it's probably like, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But when you start to have more than 10 labels, just starting to put things in the hierarchy can be helpful. It's a UI only change, but it helps us give you better quality tasks, which is good for everybody. And that last point there is what I had already mentioned, which is we have the more flexibility to go change how things are displayed without changing your internal values there. So I'm excited about this one. I think we can all start to use this pretty fast. So, all right. This is a new attribute that we've come out with. It allows, inside of a box or a cuboid, a tasker to draw and visually see lines across there. This is very useful for kind of framing image reference points or doing things like approximating the center of gravity or other key features about an annotation. So as I'm drawing this box and trying to fill out this person over here, I can go ahead and drag the sliders on the right-hand side to adjust the lines and then get a very precise value about where those are at in the image itself. So we think for certain use cases, this could be a really good fit and a better way to provide information than what's we had in the past. One that I am also personally very excited about is the ability to go link attributes or link annotations together with attributes specifically. So links can be optional or required, and you are able to set an allow list of which types of labels can another annotation be linked to. So some different use cases here. If I want to establish a relationship between annotations, like say a trailer to a truck, I could optionally say, is there a truck associated with this trailer? Go link it there. In the use case on the right-hand side, I have asked which traffic sign is most relevant. And so I was able to go select the traffic sign in my lane as the traffic sign that is relevant here. Um, there's a lot of different use cases though between linking related actors together, building relationships. This caused that to happen, or this is associated with this. This person is looking at this sign. This person is doing this action to this thing there, as well as kind of grouping objects together. So again, kind of like the truck and the trailer example, if I have a motorcycle and a motorcycle rider, I can go link those, that kind of thing. So I think the linking is going to be very helpful for different use cases for us. All right. The next one I want to chat about is global attributes. So global attributes are a way to kind of go above the individual annotations and collect information about the scene itself. And so as you have lots of images that you might be working through, we can go ahead and also kind of categorize what type of image is this. For example, what time of day is it? Different things about the blurriness or the lighting conditions that might be on that image itself, the weather, the environment, the type of road a vehicle might be on. Pretty much sky's the limit. I chose actually a different kind of example of it, maybe more of a document processing where we ask people what type of document is this. So I can choose between a receipt, an invoice, or an order form. I guess it's not tied to the annotations of food items. This is just tied to the overall image itself or the scene in general. So I think this will be very useful for collecting some metadata that you can go feed into your models along with the annotations there. So we've already seen people really start to use this one a lot, and I'm very excited about the different use cases that we're going to have. All right, so that was our image-specific endpoints and changes here. Next up, I want to discuss some of the video endpoints and what we've done there. So before we dive into the specific features that are new, I want to discuss our two different types of endpoints we have for videos. The traditional one that you might be used to is just our video annotation, where we take an array of image frames or a single video file. We display them in the browser as a sequence of the images themselves there. And this works really well for videos with, especially under 100 frames. It can go up to a couple hundred frames, but if you can probably imagine trying to load all of the images in a single video and the browser does have some performance consequences. So we've come out with the video playback annotation, where we take in a single video file, we display the video as an embedded video, and this can work well with videos of up to tens of thousands of frames. So we're certainly seeing a lot of performance gains here. Talking about what we can do in our overall video endpoints. So the video labeling today is very similar to the image labeling, actually. We still support all of the multiple geometries in one single task type. We support the labels, the display values, the attributes, and whatnot that you would expect from the image labeling. We still support the hypothesis as well, along with a customizable frame rate to support easy or downsampling on both task types there. So if you need persistent instance IDs of objects across your set of images or across the video sequence, we'll want to use our video endpoints for that. And of course, there are some efficiency gains when labeling video that you do not get in an image there. The last one I want to chat about was events. So both video endpoints support an events to annotate. Events are kind of like the global attributes. They are not linked to a specific annotation, but are instead captured at the frame or timestamp level. So the response that you would get is a list of events, including the name of the event, the type of the event that you've asked for, as well as the start and end frame for that event specifically. So if you need to capture actions taken by objects in the scene, or capture state changes or scene changes, or things like this in the environment, you can do so. Also, our events technically would allow you to capture the kind of global attributes of the video as well. So you can describe the entire video with an event if you needed to. So that concludes our video endpoints, a little bit shorter because it's mostly a lot of the repeats of the image endpoints there. I want to chat about some of the tooling things. This is one area I am extremely excited to present to you all. So first things first, we have introduced task tagging. All right, so this is the ability to add searchable metadata to tasks. You can add up to 5 string-based tags, like a normal tag, I guess, on any other application. But the coolest part is you can go ahead and actually filter based on the task tags when retrieving tasks from the API. So for example, if you want to filter based off of a run or instance or scenario ID, you could do so and say, hey, I want all the images from that given run to come back to me. And I don't want to go keep track of all the different tasks I've tried to store for that specific run. Similarly, you need to go pull annotations off of a specific vehicle, from a specific camera, a location, during a time of day, etc. Tags can be used for all of these things. And I really think this is going to change the way in which we export or you retrieve your data from our platform. I think quickly gone will be the days of trying to maintain a huge task mapping in a whole internal database about all these different things. We want to move that directly onto our platform. And I think task tagging is going to play a big role in that as we get started. So really looking forward to this one. Very happy to chat more about it and how this could be used. And that goes into my next favorite thing, which is unique IDs. This is going to change the game and how we submit tasks. You should be using a unique ID pretty much no matter what. We all know that if you send in a duplicate task, it's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt for you because you probably paid for it without realizing it was a duplicate task. Then you have repetitive data on your side. That's not very fun. If you find out they have duplicate tasks, you're probably going to ask us to go fix your duplicate tasks with you, which isn't very fun for us. The unique ID is going to prevent all of that from happening. It's very easy to set on the task. It's just simply like any other field. So if I just say unique ID is, I chose my attachment name in this case, but you can choose whatever thing that you want to have as a unique ID. You can put that there. It should be thought of as a customizable task ID that you are in control of. And like our task tags, you can directly query for tasks based on it. So now, instead of trying to remember what my scale task idea was, or trying to do a whole database looking to go retrieve it or do something else, you can just ask for the unique ID that you already know, like the file name, and say, hey, scale, give me the task with this file name, and it will come back to you, which is pretty terrific. So when you use it, when you don't want to maintain a database mapping of scale task IDs to internal IDs, and you don't want duplicate tasks. Now, some of you might be saying, hey, well, I can't really use file name because I actually submit the same file to different projects or different task types. I do have a solution for you out there as well. Essentially, we can just go prepend or append your task type or project name to, you say, your file name or your other types of metadata, and that will be a unique ID for that specific project. And so with some slightly creative workarounds, not even a workaround, just slightly creative use of the unique ID, we can actually go ahead and accomplish those use cases as well. The error that you will get back is also very helpful. So if I were to submit the same task twice, and I submitted another one with the same file name, I'm going to get back a 409 error, which means there's a conflict. And it's going to tell me that my unique ID that I just tried to use, this thing, is already used for a different task. And it will actually show me the task ID. So I don't need to go try to get back through my logs and look at everything to figure out what happened there. So definitely helpful, and looking forward to this one helping everybody as well. The next thing is we have added these support to do project versioning. So most of you today are probably declaring labels and attributes at the task level. This information can now be set at the project level, and then tasks will automatically inherit those properties from the project automatically. This allows for the kind of beginnings of project versioning and use of the project param version field on tasks for tracking which project version a given task is in. You would use this when versioning is really important for you, and you do not mind making and updating projects with an API call for now. So we don't have a way today to kind of set all the labels and attributes and other fields from the UI, but that support is there in the API. And so happy to chat more with folks on this one if this is seeming relevant and cool, but we're excited to have the support in our platform today. Alrighty. And the last thing I want to kind of chat through now is some things that we're doing for the developer experience. So first things first, we have some interactive documentation now. And so back in July, we actually did a really big overhaul of our docs to use README IO, building out features and content such as our Scale 101 basics, adding search functionality, adding lots of code samples in different languages. And we started with some API interactivity. Today, we've really doubled down on making our documentation fully interactive and supporting the open API standards to improve our consistency. Now, today, we can make full, complex API calls directly from the documentation, then copy and paste the sample code that's generated into your own script. And this allows for some rapid prototyping, and I'm very excited to see what we will be able to do kind of with this moving forward. We have time at the end also just do an example. It's kind of fun to see. So we'll go from there. All right. Also, we've been busy updating our SDKs. So our Python SDK was long overdue for a revamp to match the current capabilities of our API. The Python SDK today now has parity with all of our task types that we're currently doing right now, as well as support for managing projects in batches, which was missing before. We have a similar revamp plan for our Node.js SDK. That's what you're using as well, by the way. But if you do prefer the experience of SDK, I think you'll benefit a lot from the changes that we've been making over the past few weeks to it. So we're excited to have that out and ready for you all. Lastly, I want to give a preview about a new data pipeline starter kit that we are building. We're calling it SAIL. And while we've covered a lot of our best practices today, I think it can be clear that building a robust, performant, duplicate-free data pipeline is no easy feat. SAIL is meant to provide a boost on the task submission and retrieval process by doing the project versioning for you, handling your batch creation and finalization, allowing you to very easily and flexibly kind of point to what tasks you want, whether it's URLs in a CSV, data in a JSON file, or just making or passing in a Python dictionary. We have concurrency added for every operation, so your scripts can run probably about 30 times faster than just making it one request after the other. We also built in logging, error handling, the item potency or duplicate prevention, and all of that as part of all of this. So that is in our SDKs as well. When you look at our documentation, but we're really excited about this. It is early access, so if you have feedback, ideas, or things that you're seeing, we would love to work with you on all of that. At this point, that concludes what I had in mind for the presentation. I think we'll probably be able to take some questions, but thank you all for being such attentive listeners as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Shaun. All right, now we have some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions on what was presented, please go ahead and submit them in the Q&A feature. Just to kick things off, first question I have for you, Shaun, is can you also add a hypothesis to LiDAR annotation tasks?
Yeah, that is something that we are exploring now. So what I would encourage you to do is get in touch with your engagement manager, and we can kind of chat through how that would work. And we really just want to try to hear about your use cases probably and make sure it's a good fit as well. So definitely an interesting topic for us, and we'd love to get your perspective on it.
Great. When would you recommend a label hierarchy versus traditional attributes?
Yeah, okay, good question. So I suppose the traditional attribute would be using our label or like the attribute conditionality to um, select further kind of attributes about, okay, this is a car, what type of car is it, that kind of thing. I think the one thing to note is that the label hierarchy, while we have some nice tools to display it, um, we probably don't want to display like a lot more than like say 50 or 60 options as part of the label hierarchy. So the attributes are good to kind of ask further questions about um, a specific type of label. Especially, I would use the attributes when multiple labels are going to need the same type of question to be answered. And so if it's like objects and like what different types of objects, I would use labels. If it's the if it could apply to more than one label, we'll want to use an attribute. I think that's probably a good way to actually think about it. The more I think about it now. So good question.
Do the linking attributes support one-to-N relationships? For example, can I link multiple traffic signs as relevant for a vehicle?
Yeah. Today it is a one-to-one mapping, but we are actively exploring the one-to-many. And so I think that is an enhancement that will be welcomed by many, including myself. So that's something that we're going to be thinking through. But um, today, the set expectations, it will be one-to-one mapping that we support with the linking attribute.
Awesome. How does project versioning interact with the tasks and batches in the project?
Yeah, so great question. Once you submit a task to the project, if you're using the project versions, the task will inherit the current project state. But if we change the project later on, your task will not change. And so you can think about it as, which I think is kind of like what you'd already expect today, right? Once you submit a task, we don't change the labels on it halfway through, and if you want to kind of update it really. And so that same kind of behavior will be tied to the project versioning, but your task will have a field, this project param version field, that will say this is tied to project version 1 or project version 3. And then you also can look at the project versions to figure out what is project version 3. Oh, that's the one that had X and Y label in it. Okay, this makes sense now. Um, so that's kind of how the projects and the task submission process will work. The batches won't be impacted by it. So there won't be any change to how the batching works within if you move to the project version. So.
Great. For the padding feature, do we need to specify the pixel size of the padding or does it extend indefinitely?
You do need to specify how much padding you want. Great question. You can specify it as kind of a global padding that will apply to all sites equally. I didn't talk about it. We also have a padding X and a padding Y field that can be used instead of the main padding field. You just want to add padding in one direction or the other. But we do need to specify how much padding is allowed as you create the task there.
Great. Could you explain again what sail is for?
Yeah, absolutely. So sail is meant sail is meant if you are starting out on your data pipeline and you're trying to figure out how to get all of our best practices added there. It should really help kind of speed up that process for new customers. Now, if you are already an existing customer, there still might be an opportunity to use sail and convert. If you're running the script to give your data to scale, sail can do a really good job of automating that part and making it faster and more robust for you. If you are not using the script and you already have some other fancy process, sail might not be as good of a fit. But once you kind of move to like, hey, I have a script that just sends in 100,000 tasks or 2,000 images over here, sail can take care of all of that for you. We've used it for up to millions of tasks to be submitted. So on that side, we know it at least works and was extremely helpful for us in Toronto. That was kind of a main motivational factor for us, was to go handle large volumes in a script-based way. So it's an example of starting script for you, if that would be helpful for the use cases that you have in mind.
Great. Is there any benefit to using X and Y offset attributes to get orientation of an object in an image over using the cuboid geometry?
So when I think about orientation, we also have like an angle one. So depending on kind of the viewpoint that we need to kind of express. We have actually like it's kind of a cool visually. Uh, it's a very visual angle selector, so you can go select kind of the orientation there. And our ruler tool that's in our annotation platform actually supports like getting the angles of objects out. Um, and so we can actually kind of combine those two. So you can use your ruler tool to get a very exact kind of angle measurement. And then our angle um, attribute can go ahead and take that ruler output there. And so I might actually recommend using the existing angle attribute to do orientation. I suppose the X and Y could be helpful as well, depending on the use case there to kind of frame um, the orientation as well. But yeah, that's a good question. And I think if you want to kind of work with the us, we'd be happy to explore that use case in more detail with you. So.
Great. Is Sail live? Where can I access it?
Great question. So let me go ahead and exit the presentation quick. So, um, so actually, oops, okay. So I've added the link to Sail in our client libraries and SDKs here. So we have our example SDKs. I've now kind of jotted the notes down about Sail, including where this is pointed to. Essentially, it's going to look like this. So we do have some documentation now on what it is, where it is, and all of that. I will say the caveat of early access is to indicate that we're still working on some of the examples and documentation. So that it's a bit of a work in progress. We think it's ready now to start playing with it and kind of showing it to folks, but some of the examples and documentation is still being worked on now. So great question.
Is there any limit in the length of the tag string?
Yes, there's a length of 255 characters. So, and it's a little bit flexible, but we don't want to put like entire JSON blobs and lots of data in the tag. So there's a limit to 255 characters.
So would it be possible to set task priority based on tags?
It would not be today. So we see these as kind of two different features, and they kind of trigger different things on our backend. The tags are kind of like the metadata, where we're not going to use your tags for anything. Instead, they're going to be a way for you to go ahead and retrieve things based off of them a lot faster. So when I think about retrieving multiple tasks, that's going to be the primary use case, as opposed to kind of an internal process change on our side.
Great. Is there a feature to add velocity and acceleration to the annotated objects currently?
I would be curious to see, I suppose this might be in the video use case. I think those things they're tricky, right? Because you have to have a lot of information about the camera itself and kind of how things are moving. You know, and our 3D endpoints is a lot more clear support because we have things moving clearly through a 3D space. I think about tracking velocity or whatnot in a camera image. It becomes possible if you have all the information about kind of how the camera is projecting the world around it. But we don't really have an attribute that I would say neatly fits into the velocity kind of tracking today. Good question.
Okay. What else is on the roadmap for developer tools and infrastructure?
Yeah, great question. I like that question. And so for me, I do want to this quarter, our field engineering team has had a focus on kind of revamping the developer experience there. So that's why we were kind of focusing on, say, like the SDKs, on Sail, on this webinar and stuff like this. So I think what you can expect though is even more clear documentation and examples around this. And I think if you have other operational things, we are open to it. I think one big one I'll plug now is trying to improve the way we think about customer audits and being able to audit specific objects as opposed to the overall scene, and kind of collecting feedback in a way that's seamless but allows more granularity to be captured both for your sake and our sake. And so that's that will be a change or a release over the next month or so that allows us to do customer audits in a better and more granular way. Yeah, so.
Great. If we want to keep track of new features, scale, ship, what's the best way to stay up to date?
Great question. All right. So I think I might have actually no. So we have a change log here. So we probably have a blue dot, I suppose, over here. And we actually have scale.releasenotes.io. And we can actually go ahead and view different changes as they're coming out. So different updates to different parts of our platform. You can subscribe to this as well. So if it's helpful to kind of get an email about this, we have that. And in general, when we do release a new feature, it's going to be a big blue banner across the top of the dashboard that kind of points to whatever is new. So that should be helpful as well. Great question. So.
Awesome. All right. So with that, we're going to end our talk today. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next event is Transform, Scale AI's first ever conference on March 26th. You can find all the information for the event on scale.com/events. Shaun, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a great day.